Illegal dumping and littering is a concern across the Gladstone region, with over 134 offences in the last 18 months. Our region is beautiful, but there are a few bad apples that ruin it for the rest of us, and they need to clean up their act.
Commonly found items at illegal dumping sites across the region include car bodies and batteries, mattresses, tyres, white goods and furniture, and green waste. These items can be disposed of at any of the region's waste transfer stations, some of them even for free.
Illegal dumping and littering pollutes our environment, harms plants and animals, and detracts from the enjoyment of our public spaces. It can lead to stormwater and ocean pollution, with large amounts of plastic, sugar sachets, and cigarette butts caught in stormwater traps and grates.
It's cheaper for everyone to dispose of waste correctly. Illegal dumping and littering costs our ratepayers thousands of dollars each year in waste management and clean-up. It's also costly for our dumper, with penalties of up to $10,000.
We can all work together to keep our region beautiful and dispose of waste responsibly by placing rubbish in the bins, or even holding onto the rubbish until you're near a suitable bin, and using our local waste facilities. Don't be part of the problem of pollution. We want you to be a part of the solution.
From towns to the bush, illegal dumping and littering is everybody's responsibility. Protect our public spaces and natural environment by doing the right thing for today and tomorrow.
If you see illegal dumping,
dive in a dumper.
See it,
report it,
stop it.
And we'll start that again. The time being 9 a.m, I declare open the general meeting for the Gladstone Regional Council for the 6th of September 2022. We do have a number of apologies this morning, so I'll move through those. We have an apology from Councillor Goodluck, Councillor Branthwaite and Councillor Trevor. And we have an urgent business item dealing with a leave of absence for Councillor Trevor later in the agenda. But for now, councillors, I'd like a mover for the apologies, please. Thank you, Councillor O'Grady. Seconded, Councillor Cameron. All in favour? Motion is carried. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda, councillors, is our messages of condolence. Do we have any messages of condolence? Thank you, Councillor O'Grady.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to send a message of condolence to the Reid family of the passing of Graham Reid. A lot of people would remember Graham. He was a dentist in the Gladstone region for many years. So He had his own private practice for 40 years and worked for Queensland Government for Queensland Health for 15 years at the hospital. So Graham passed away a few weeks ago watching the sport he loved, rugby league. So, my condolences go out to the Reid family. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Grady. The next item on the agenda, councillors, is our prior notifications of conflicts of interest. Tanya, do we have any prior notifications? Thank you. Councillor Muscat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tanya, do you mind just showing me the item number? I'd just like to note that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item G 3.1, Gladstone Area Promotion Development Limited deputation, because I'm a director of Strong Communities Ltd, which currently holds a service agreement with GAPDL to deliver services under the Communities for Children program. So I'd like to leave the room while the deputation is taking place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. No problem at all. Any one? That's okay. No further conflicts. The next item on the agenda is a Mayor's statement on current issues, and I want to start by acknowledging the Calliope Outback GP, which not something normally we'd do as a Mayor's statement. Too many acknowledgements of new businesses opening, but when a new GP or a new health professional service opens in our local community, especially in current times, you certainly want to shout it from the hilltops. And it's fantastic to have a GP service back in Calliope, and of course the bus that will travel around to other local communities, including the Boyne Valley and Mount Larkham and Miriam Vale. So fantastic to have health services being delivered back in Calliope, but also to the smaller communities in our region. So good luck and all the best to the people opening the new GP service there in Calliope at the shopping centre. And thank you, Councillor Cameron and O'Grady, for attending the day with us as we did the official opening. Spring in the Vale was on last weekend, and I believe a very good event and very well attended, very popular event, and it's going from strength to strength. It's been going for a number of years now and can only get bigger, and that's great news for Miriam Vale there. Recently in the Art Gallery we hosted the Golding Showcase, and coming up in a couple of weeks, I think it is, or on the Thursday the 15th, we'll launch our Priceless Pass, which is one of our most popular exhibitions at the Gladstone Regional Art Gallery and Museum. So that'll be on Thursday the 15th of September. On the weekend just gone, I was in the Boyne Valley to celebrate 100 years of the Country Women's Association in Queensland. Thank you, Councillor O'Grady, for joining me for that event. And obviously the Gladstone branch will celebrate their 100 years, and our other branches will celebrate part of that over the next coming years as well. But on the weekend, it was celebrating CWA across Queensland, 100 years of service to our local community, and hats off to the ladies and all the work they've done for many, many years, whether they've been supporting communities in times of war, times of drought, just in times of need. The CWA have always been there for our local community, and I think it's testament to the organisation. They've been going for 100 years, and let's hope they continue for another 100 years. This Saturday, the VMR Gladstone is celebrating 50 years, and we know the good work the VMR does as well. So thank you to the volunteers, Marine Rescue, and all the people involved in that organisation. Congratulations on your 50th anniversary this Saturday. The Boyne Valley Showcase kicks off on the 9th of September in the Boyne Valley as well, and the Carnival of Arts kicks off this weekend, and the official exhibition is on the 16th of this month as well. So that's a big, long arts festival as well. And of course, we've got PopCon happening this weekend at the Gladstone Entertainment Convention Centre from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Queensland's only free pop cultural event, I am advised. Thank you, councillors. The next item on the agenda is the confirmation of the minutes, and G2.1 is a confirmation of the general meeting minutes the 16th of August. Move Councillor Churchill, second, and Councillor Hanson. All in favour? Motion's carried. I was going to say Councillor Niven, and that's been a while. Well, Rick Niven, Rick Hanson, you know, it's been a while. The glasses are, they're really good down here at reading, writing, but when you look up, everything else is a blur. Getting used to this, these glasses. Thank you, councillors. The next item on our agenda is our deputations, and we do have a deputation from GAPDL, and I'll hand over to Gus Stedman, the CEO. Thank you, Gus. Sorry? Oh, yeah, that's okay, yep. We'll just wait till Councillor Muscat leaves and then over.
Well, Natalia doesn't need to leave. There is no slides from Communities for Children. There's no part of the deputation has any Communities for Children stuff in it. So there's no
Well, I agree.
no
I probably agree with you, and probably
Well,
most
it's up
people in the
to you
community
guys.
do. But no, the way they carry on with conflicts of interest these
Okay.
days, if she doesn't leave, someone will be after her and saying
If-
she's done the wrong thing. So,
Fair,
yeah,
fair call. I'm just,
yeah.
was just trying to,
Well, I'd like to stay her to
Yeah.
stay too, but it is what it is. Anyway, all yours, Gus. Thank you.
is the microphone working? So, thank you, Mayor Burnett. Thank you very much. I'd firstly like to acknowledge the traditional owners and the land in which we meet today, the Gurang, the Gurang-Gurang, the Byerley and the Terralang Bunda people. I'd like to pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and appreciate every day we walk on the lands the same as those guys. I'd also like to acknowledge Mayor Burnett. I had Deputy Mayor Goodluck down, but obviously not. All the councillors, Chief Executive Lisa, and all of the exec team present and some that are watching. And while we like to always give a shout out to some of the colleagues that we work closely with in council, I must say that working with Kim Markson and Glenda down at the GECC and as our lead for council is really making our job so much easier by their enthusiasm and their encouragement and their, collaborative stuff. So I really appreciate that. And another guy in council who fights a bit of a lone hand in economic development, which, is Gary Scanlon. He does a power of work for the community across a lot of sectors, not just Gladstone Regional Council, but, his big help to GEA, GAPDL, GRT, his depth of knowledge is really appreciated. And, it's the people that make things work, and he's doing a great job. So I'd also like to give a shout out to my team and my board, or not my board, the GAPDL board. And I'd also like to give a big welcome to all the visitors from the air race who are over enjoying their breakfast this morning at Cotton Mill. And, when we get visitation like that, injects a lot of money into the community, and the doctors and the local government conference, the feedback that we were getting from the community about these events is really heartening, because that's what the traders want to see, is increased turnover. And so thank you very much. I'm just going to have a go at the technology, but please forgive me if this PowerPoint's a bit clunky, because Nicola is off on COVID, and I am no tech expert. I'll give you that. I'd like to just that acknowledged, but here we go. Safety is a job, and we've all got to work at it. It's just a simple message, and also, very fortuitous that this Thursday is Are You OK Day. So Are You OK Day is every day. We really need to look out for our workmates, our family, our friends, and anybody who you might see struggling. So, give them a hand up and try and keep people on track. So I really would like to just move on to Easter in Gladstone. For mine, this was probably one of the proudest weekends in the 30 years that I've lived in this town. I just want to play a little video, if my technological skills can take over.
I'll climb these city walls, ooh, eh, ooh. And I hear the jungle call, ooh, eh, ooh. You can't take this lock and key. There's someplace else I know I'd rather be. I'm going back out to sea. I'll roll this river wild, ooh, eh, ooh. Run like a little child, ooh, eh, ooh. You can't take this lock and key. There's someplace else I know I'd rather be. I'm going back out to sea.
Congratulations, guys.
You can take this lock and key. There's someplace else I know I'd rather be. I'm going back out to sea.
You'll be glad you did.
Why would you live anywhere else, eh? How good was that?
So, yeah, and I was immensely proud of our team and the council, GPC, Events Queensland, GFE. Everyone worked together at Easter, and it was really, really heartening, and the feedback from people was amazing. The Harbour Cruise was a new event, sold out within a few days. It was just, and the weather was sensational. So, hats off all round. Excuse the pun, because Barnaby Joyce's hat was auctioned for $6,000, and we made it on the Breakfast TV and Channel 7 and Channel 9 the next day, which is, worth it. Was worth it, and it was an impromptu gesture on his behalf. Was not scripted. So hats off to everyone. So moving on from Easter, we just want to touch quickly, and some of these slides haven't got much detail on them, so I'll talk quickly to them. We're working closely with the Byerley Aboriginal Corporation, and we've lodged a grant application to develop the Harbour Marine Indigenous Tour, which, we should find out in the next couple of months. But we're also working with the PCCC on a 10-year tourism strategy for the region and for all of the traditional owners in the region. So there's some really, really exciting developments in that space. It does take time, and because you've got a lot of stakeholders to cover in the PCCC for tribal groups or clans, and we've also got local government, state government, and organisations like us. Everyone's trying to do the right thing. So I'm really confident that over time we'll be able to develop some products that will generate employment for the youth and First Nations youth in particular. Cruise, we are very confident that cruise will return to Gladstone. We are hopeful that will be by the end of the year. There should be some announcements soon. We've been to Cruise Line International Australia Conference. This is where Nicola caught the COVID, we believe, and where Emma and I are attending the Australian Cruiser Association Conference in Townsville this week, starting tomorrow. So we'll be pushing Gladstone's Barrow, but we've done a lot of work behind the scenes on the comms with Council and Gladstone Ports. We've also done a lot of work with operators getting them ready, and we believe we have an enhanced offering for when the cruise ships return. I think our ultimate goal, which was said to the Port Board the other day, would be to get 20 ships a year. So people could build a base of business around that regular visitation, especially tour operators, bus and coach, cruise, reef trips, and et cetera, harbour tours, Fisherman's Wharf and different things that we're talking about, catch a crab and stuff. So hopefully we can build that. The drive market and the RV market has been exceptionally robust. We have had a campaign running, and the impressions and the views have been really strong. And because we have that market is predominantly free independent travellers. You don't get the level of conversion you get with the pre-packaged tours and things like that because people do the research and then they visit. But we believe our visitation numbers, especially in this space, have been every bit as good as any other year and probably better than pre-COVID numbers. So I'm very, very comfortable with the way that market's heading. Of course, we could benefit from some additional infrastructure, but you know, everybody's got budget constraints and you can't just have everything you want. You just have to deal with what you can, deal with what you got and compromise around some of the situations because you know, they say you build it and they'll come, but you know, it needs to be measured and structured approach. So I'm pretty comfortable with the way we're heading. Of course, we'd like to see Workman's Campground open, but that's just the way things are at present. I just want to touch on the weekly accommodation stats. We're now getting these data through weekly. So this this is last week's data, so it would be the week before last. And the green line is this year. So it is on track. And the green line in the other page is the daily rate. So the rates are probably commensurate with the costs, increasing costs of living and things like that. But at least our accommodation operators are charging a rate more than last year, so that, you know, their yield should be stronger, and consequently that means that demand must be stronger. So I'm pretty happy with the way that these statistics are going. And so I'm now going to give you a bit of a snapshot of a few slides from the Roy Morgan data reports. They're now being weighted with population data as well, and I'm part of the test group, so this stuff is not finished, but it's going to give us an indication on how we can market to the people who come here, our target markets, better. So if you see down the left-hand column, you've got the seasons, you know, 93% intrastate, 5% interstate. But what you've got to remember is that this is probably generated in 2019 in COVID lockdown, so that might, so it says profile period 2019, which when I run the report I didn't realise, so I confess that I should have done it for the last 12 months. But it's just a demonstration on the data, and these helix personas, I'm learning more about them, and what it helps people do is when you drill down into an area and when you want to target a certain, you know, they're coming from, say, the northern suburbs of Brisbane, and they are, the helix persona will tell you what they predominantly do, what their income is and all that, so you can target your marketing towards those type of people. So like, I'll just keep pressing on with these. So visitor satisfaction, in this top right hand corner, you'll see how the quadrant is skewed right to the left, and that top right hand corner, let me see if I can work the button. But anyway, that top right hand corner is where the majority of the visitors, and that part of the quadrant in the keep going is keep doing what you're doing. So the vast majority of the people that have been here are happy with the experience. We've got a few in try something different, and we've got very few in leave them alone. You like, don't worry about them. So my understanding of that data is that, you know, what we're doing now is resonating with our visitors. And we'll learn more about this stuff as it goes on. So this is points of interest. As you can see in the bottom right, points of interest, well, Stockland is the busiest thing. Interestingly, Blomfield Street, Miriamvale, is always ranking third. And the thing about that is that it's geo-fenced. The point of interest does not include the Bruce Highway. So that means all people that come off the highway. And sometimes, some of the data I've seen recently has had Blomfield Street nearly up there with Gundoon Street. So, and if anyone's been through there or been into the new Cool Beans Cafe there, the lineup was out the door the other day when I was there. So the traffic through Miriamvale is really good, and they've really done a fantastic job with Alf Larson Park. It is, you know, something to behold. And Mitch from the pub is going to put some more information in down there, so when the cafe's closed, we'll have information on hand. So I'm really happy with the way people are tracking through Miriamvale. So this is just a population estimate based on the region, and it just shows that the percentage change in that base period has been 2.7% up, which I don't know whether that aligns with what council would think, or REM plan as far as population increase over the last couple of years.
I think it's 1.8.
Yeah.
In REM plan, or around about that. 1.9.
Yeah, so I mean, and that could be as much as a measurement, but I think, you know, when we get this weighted population data, it'll be a lot more accurate than we were getting before in device data, because you don't always, you know, you can't always tell from that. So there's a national visitor statistics, which is a bit of a wordy slide, so we won't talk too much about that, but this one here, for the year ending March, really happy to see Gladstone with 45,000 more visitors than our colleagues in Bundy, and, you know, just 24,000 less than Rockhampton for the same period year on year, bearing in mind that we don't have the Bruce Highway running through with the middle of us. I think that's an outstanding result. And, you know, spend per visitor of $600 and spend per night of $180 is good money, and I'm really comfortable with the way we're trending with visitation. I think the town's doing quite well. So without dwelling on the data too much, I'll just move on to we ran the turtle tank, and 6 businesses were awarded the turtle tank grant. And we're really excited by the quality of the operators and what they're going to deliver. And also on the right-hand side, we've got a new art gallery at Baffle Creek called At Ubuntu. And this lady's done a fantastic job on a new business down there. And there's things like that going to start to pop up all the time, with Agnes Dives Beer and Sport looking to open later in the year. Of course, everyone knows Ward's Brewery's not far away, so Michael's very excited to get that up and going, and I saw him shoveling some barley or whatever they used to brew the beer into the containers the other day. So we're going to see a lot more, or a few more, of those new style operators and, you know, as the market grows and the population grows, these service-based businesses will become more sustainable and more profitable, which is what we need to generate the service income and industries that we need to support a growing community. Tourism training, in between running very busy businesses, some of our tourism members, we've introduced the events masterclass. We've done the QTIC. We're in the process of doing QTIC micro-credentialing. We've got Best of Queensland experiences. We've Book Easy training, tourism experience mentoring program, you know, networking events, social media training, digital marketing workshops. So there's a lot of stuff available for the members in the industry, and, you know, when they can take advantage of it, they do. And sometimes it's just, and especially with staff, it's really hard for people to get away from their businesses because, you know, some of them even just have to close for a day to get a day off. So, and we're not alone. It's the same issue up and down the East Coast. So, the SGBR will become a lot more prominent brand with the return of international visitors. We are seeing a lot more effort go into SGBR and a lot more, how do you say, persuasion from TEQ and the department for us to collaborate more to try and generate scale, to try and make better bang for the buck, and not to make us amalgamate, but to us to work smarter. And the Tourism Recovery Plan wants organisations like us to find better ways of working and how to generate more visitors and be more efficient as organisations. So, I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but they need to also understand how parochial we are in regional Queensland, and that, you know, we will not give up our independence or sovereignty without some resistance. The fishing tourism is always a moving feast. I have nominated to join the hookup committee this year. We're also looking to develop a regional tourism fishing strategy, and VMR Round Hill have volunteered to come on board to help us because they have probably the most challenges in respect to marine safety, tidal movements, sandbars, etc. So we really need to be mindful of, when we bring people to town, that they're aware of the potential hazards of boating and across the board, because once you're out there, there's a lot of water and not much land, and we really need to be, people need to be aware that there is inherent risks with boating, and weather is something that none of us can control, and you need to be prepared for worst case scenario. We are going to, you know, develop maps and things like that, but I must say that at Sanctuary Cove International Boat Show, the feedback from the boating public, from the guys from the smallest 5-metre tinny that they drag up the highway and launch in there, to 183-foot super yachts, everyone spoke highly of the Capricorn Bunker Group. Everyone that comes into Gladstone Marina say it. Some people said it's the best in Australia, the best in the East Coast. Great prices, good facilities, good people, is outstanding. The most positive event I've been to in respect to Gladstone, and a lot of people say, oh, we just anchor up at Lady Musgrave for a couple of weeks, or we call into Pancake, and we go past and we stop at Cape Cap, and oh, we know, we've been down, up and down for years. Or we just been there for the yacht race, had a great time. So I don't think that we are, in the boating public's eyes, an unknown quantity. I think we're very well regarded, and the region, the Southern Great Barrier Reef region, is highly thought of by the boating people. And of recent times, we've seen 2 super yachts refuelling at the Marina Wharf. One of them was 183 foot, which was, you know, hanging over the edge of the ferry terminal by about 20 feet. But Liam managed to get considerable amount of diesel in its tanks, which he was very happy about. But I think, you know, we're getting more and more prominence. I think the marina and the facilities are first class, and I think that, you know, fishing tourism is a good space. We're also floating and tossing around the idea of potentially doing a trailer boat and camping show in late 23, if we can make it happen, and that would probably be held. The port seemed to think the VMR car park would be a good place. Our discussion with them, I think, it probably worked pretty well, and if there was enough interest from companies, and we may even run a sports fishing competition in conjunction with it to complement the back half of the year for the hookup. So we did one in May and one in October, and that, you know, would really help us put or keep the region front and centre. Short and sweet today. As I said, the technology is not my strong point, so I'm ready for questions, concerns or queries.
Thanks, Gus. I think, considering no Nicola, you did very well. Questions, councillors? Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Matt. Yeah, thanks, Gus, and to you, your team, well done. It's always pleasing to get a greater insight because we hear things and we get it from the CEO and or your staff. I thought that big boat was Councillor Cameron's new vessel when I first saw it down there fuelling up. But that said, in your report, that's and I believe that's available online. Okay, there's a couple of questions that jump out at me. One is in category 2. You mentioned there earlier the cruise ships, and that it's very likely, be it that you're setting a target of 20 per annum. My question is, now that the wharf has been strengthened, is there discussions now with the international cruise liners to see if the bigger cruise liners will be able to be part of that 20, or is it still at this stage discussions with Carnival for their current fleet?
I wouldn't call the 20 a target. I would say more an aspiration. It's very difficult to set a target, but I would think we will be in a better position to answer that factually after this week at ACA, because it hasn't been run for a couple of years. But I know Intercruise, Bob Wood and Abercrombie and Kent, the Shorex people are pushing really hard for us, and we've been working closely with them. I know we have a ship potentially in 2024 who's only 280 passengers, but they're all high net worth individuals. So and the thing I've noticed about cruise ships is that you can get a different demographic of passenger depending on the cruise line and the price they pay and where they come from, and they'll be all looking for different experiences. So we need to be mindful of all that. We would like to see the 4,000 people ships. One of the challenges that Airlie and Cairns have had, I believe, is 1, tour guides, and 2, getting enough buses to transport those big amounts of people around. So that challenge of being able to entertain that many people in that short space of time may present as a challenge, but happy to have a crack.
Good, yeah, you're up for the challenge, obviously, and pleasing to read in your report that you've got the Discovery Coast Cruise Liner Working Group at this stage to endeavour to get those travellers down to Agnes Water 1770 and the Discovery Coast. So it's pleasing to see that that's progressing as well.
Well, we'd like to see dispersal throughout the region when people come. You know, we'd like to send people to Creed Grazings, Langmorn Station. We'd like to send them to a historical village. We'd like to send them to the rail trail. We'd like to send them to the Millennium Esplanade and Awonga Dam, and also Discovery Coast. I mean, it's the more we disperse that money through the town, the easier it is for the existing businesses to service those people, because you know, you hardly want to see the historical village try and cope with 2,000 people turning up on a bus. It'd be really difficult and a real challenge.
Yeah,
so
they might be up for the challenge, but that's subject to buses.
Yeah.
Just on the other one, in category 4 in your report, you've indicated in there, and I won't quote the exact wording, but you're advocating for RV infrastructure. Can I just ask on that one, is that from a GAPDL perspective, or is that through the CMCA, Caravan Motorhome Club of Australia, who provide the associated funding, as you'd be aware, others may not be aware, the associated funding for infrastructure, be it dump sites, for businesses and or locations. So when you're advocating for this infrastructure, who to and where's the funding coming from?
That actual statement in there, Glenn, is, Councillor Churchill, sorry,
you're right.
is part of the work plan document, the advocacy, and that's a role that we undertake in any case for any tourism event or networking function we're at. If people say, oh, I'd like to, I've got an investor who wants to build a caravan park, you might have seen that the Kratzman family have just purchased the Discovery or the NRMA caravan park at Agnes Water and then leased it back to NRMA. So wherever we get the opportunity to talk to an investor, we have a potential investor coming to town the 21st of September, albeit for another industry, but we will always promote Gladstone as a good place to invest. And our best endeavours are, where, we could talk to someone might be 3 to 5 years before anything's done.
Yeah, no, understand that. But just mindful that the CMCA is a great advocate as well, and a strong ally when it comes to the RV industry.
We've got a good relationship with Michelle Weston from Caravanning Australia, and she's been, we've been featured in their magazine this year, which I believe has helped us. If anyone's played the 11th hole at the Gladstone Golf Course recently, you'll see how many caravans are in the Kinkora Caravan Park. I've never seen it so full.
My final one, Gus, is that you mentioned Bloomfield Street in Miriamvale, and more recently I know I've sent an email through appropriately because what happens when you have growth and increase in numbers, you have impact on services, and then all of a sudden you start to see a lot of the car parks being taken up, especially on weekends. So we don't want to lose the drive market by having the RVs congregating there for longer periods of time. So as you would be, as you'd be well aware,
massive car park.
As you'd be well aware, we tried immensely to get an RV site opened up at the rodeo grounds, the showgrounds down there.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that we probably need to come back and have a look at sometime in the future, as that market continues to grow, which is the excitement of the challenge that we have before us.
I think that, I don't really know how much spare land there is at the Star Roadhouse, but they have a few van sites there. But I think also Childers has done it quite well with you drive around the back and park, and they've got a big car park. But Mayor Burnett, Matt,
Yeah, it's a good point.
is right that there's a lot more parking up on the northern end of Blomfield Street that doesn't always get utilised. I know that if I can't get a park outside the cafe, I'll keep driving. But that's just human behaviour.
Next to the CWA, we built a fantastic car park, designated mostly for
Yeah.
RVs and trailers and everything. So for those watching online, Grey Nomads, use that. It's a great facility.
That is great, but Mr Mayor, it has been full. I just
Full.
thought that,
Oh, it's
there
full.
was at least
Capacity.
10 caravans and when I went through there, which is fantastic. But Tranquility Walk, they can go up
Yeah,
on the
bit
northern
further.
side.
But I raise that particular point because I
Yeah.
think we need to come back and revisit it, because what is exciting about it is that you get growth, you get development, and then you obviously get the impact and challenges that come with it. And you are right. I've been through there, they're full. So we'll look at it at some time in the future, and there's an email that's floating around, I think, with the general managers.
Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't like to be in your position of having to decide between the commercial interests of commercial operators and providing free infrastructure to people that come through. Because, personally, I think the market should take care of itself, and that the private enterprise and small businesses should drive ownership of that, and that they should be free to charge a reasonable price for the use of their facilities and their infrastructure, And because these people, I mean, and I'm not averse to having an overflow for people that when they can't get in or their vehicle's too big or something's not satisfactory or they have a horse with them or whatever the case may be. But I do believe that, you know, that we shouldn't encourage something for nothing that the private sector can provide a service for, because it just undervalues their business. And, you know, the old Willow Grove Caravan Park at Benaraby that was transferred into a camp is going to turn back into a full-blown caravan park soon. The lady there tells me, and that is a fantastic site. It's right on the river, they've got camping there. She's a really nice lady. So I think that, you know, we need to encourage the private sector as much as we can, and that people that come and stay in town pay for the services, for the utilities they use through those private operators, because if we're providing something for nothing, ultimately the ratepayer has to pay for it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gus. But we
So,
can learn. We can learn from the success.
I don't envy you the challenge of balancing that.
But we can learn from the success and failures of other destinations.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're right. I've got Councillor O'Grady, then Councillor Cameron, but just want to add on that. There are some of the people that are travelling that just are looking for the free places to stop to. And while I always would like to support our friends at the Star Roadhouse and at the Kinkora Caravan Park, I also don't want to miss an opportunity for someone who's driving through that just does not want to pay for that day, because they generally might stay 2 or 3 days in a free camp, and then they'll pay to stay somewhere so they can use the facilities and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So I don't want those ones driving past us, north or south, because we don't have the facilities.
100%. My point was, Matt, you know, managing that balance.
It's not easy.
And they don't. Also, they might get a free camp, but nothing's free. You cannot eat for free. You cannot drink for free. You cannot use
You've got to fuel
fuel and, you know, motor vehicles. So it does cost money, and it does inject money back into the community. So it is a fine balancing act, and that was what I was trying to say, is that, you know, how much is too much? Who knows? It's just tough.
Trying to find the balance. Councillor O'Grady, then Councillor Cameron, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Gus. I must admit I was down at GAPDL Visitor Information Centre last week, and there was at least 12 people. It was just a hype of activity. It was just an incredible amount of people. So I'd like to really thank the volunteers. They're the people that I think down there at the Vic Centre are the people that really sell the region for us. So, but I just can. No, down here, in Gladstone, it was just incredible. So, but you did mention the rail trail, and I'll just mention the rail trail once more.
Just for a change.
Just for a change, but over the last few months, there's been people actually coming to Gladstone. They're flying into Gladstone from Brisbane. They're transferring their push bikes here. They're starting here in Gladstone and riding all the way down to Ipswich along most of the rail trails. So some people, there were 6 of them, 3 couples. They spent $7,500 for their 10-day journey, and so they stayed a night in Gladstone, a night in Yabobo. So, and on that journey, they stayed 2 nights in Gayndah and whatever else, and probably where, which I'll make in my report about the opening of the rail trail down in Gayndah at Mandubra this weekend. But so, and this week somebody's coming today up on the train to go to exactly the same trip. So people are doing this bike packing stuff. So, and the money they're spending is incredible. And they're not staying, you know, some do stay in tents along the trail, but a lot of them do stay in motels, but they're either flying in and training in. So talking about training in, you only can, on the train that goes through to Cairns, you only can take 2 push bikes. So we're advocating, and I'd like JPDL to help advocate, to try and get more push bikes so we can bring people up from Brisbane to advocate to get them, you know, with their bikes, so they can actually ride from here.
2 per person or 2 per train?
Per train, yeah. 2. Yes, yeah. So, but anyway, Minister Bailey's very aware of that. But now in Brisbane, you can take trains on bikes on trains, which is fantastic.
The minister's done it himself.
So yeah. So, but on this the weighted cans you only can take 2, but it might be 2 per carriage. But yeah, so there's a lot you can do for biking, bike packing, whatever else. So, but I just wanted to make you aware, people, it's just amazing the amount of money people are spending on rail trails. And I did go out to the rail trail on Father's Day, and the rail trail, the Dawes Range tunnel section is looking absolutely amazing. So it's beautiful and green. There's some creeks running and whatever else.
So Kirsten's cottage was a recipient of the turtle tank, and she was going to upgrade her kitchen so she could open more hours up there for the rail trail. So that's fantastic. Did you have a question?
No, but I just wanted to thank the volunteers, but I wanted to make sure that people were aware how much money does go into cycling as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor O'Grady.
You did request that
Yes,
you
I
had to
will follow
contact
that up.
QR about bikes
Yeah.
on the trains.
Yeah,
Two. God, they've got to be kidding themselves. You'd be first in, best dressed there. Councillor Cameron.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, Gus, thanks for your report. Great. It's very heartening. With the cruise ships that we've had to date, what's been the average length of stay of the ship in Gladstone? And is there any intention for the stays to be increased so we can get more visitation?
I think 12 hours would be about the maximum that they're in town. And I wouldn't think that any cruise ship would stay longer unless there was an issue around provisioning or bunkering or weather, something, unforeseen, because they have these itineraries planned and they travel mostly at night. So they have the day in port and the night travelling so that they can get to the next port. And that's one of the attractions, is that, they get to use the infrastructure on the ship while they're travelling from destination to destination. I think the key is getting more of them more frequently from the more higher demographic cruises, so that we don't necessarily get more people, we just get more ships spending more money more often. Is my view, and it's very difficult for them not to sail with such tight itineraries. So,
Where I was coming from, if we had enough to offer, would they overnight? Would make a big difference.
it's a good question. It would need to be something outstanding, something special.
Want to sail at night, don't they, generally?
Yeah,
And lots of free, well, not free, already paid for food options on the ship as well. So, Gus, on the cruise ships though, you're talking about the mud crabs or the fishing. Is there any movement there of any locals interested in doing a onshore excursion in terms of taking someone to catch some muddies?
we have one interested party.
Yeah.
However, with the Shorex experience, you need to provide a certain level of documentation, and that hasn't been provided. So we're reluctant to promote anything directly that doesn't have sufficient safeguards in place or isn't prepared to provide the information that we require. So there is, Gladdy Fly Fishing and Sport, who would love to take out some high net worth travellers, and we're always, when it comes to experiences in Gladstone and provision of infrastructure and things like that, we're always battling the returns that industry would provide to a business to supply a marine service or something like that. I had a discussion with Colando from RC Marine, and he said the returns are marginal in tourism in comparison to what we can get on a contracted basis with industry. So it's to invest in the infrastructure and to finance a job, like I know there's another vessel and another Ranger staff, is really hard to get the banks and the finances approval because you're not getting that return on investment. And because it's fluctuating and it's not guaranteed and it's weather dependent, it always has some challenges. I think, you know, Joe Maguire was doing fishing charters for a while, and he said to keep his boat in survey, he had to be able to fish, a couple of days a week, and the way the weather was, he struggled to do that. So just to get your costs. And then the other battle that the tourism industry is having is, of course, insurance. Getting cover is very expensive and not prohibitive, but it adds to the cost. So it's not out of the question. We just need to find a sweet spot so that we can get enough scale to make it worth someone doing it. Ad hoc is a challenge.
Last question from me is, I know that the Feast on East markets were always oversubscribed. Do you think if a cruise ship was to come back to start returning later this year, we'd have a full set of markets?
Well, would be at least as full as the GPC will allow us.
Perfect, that's what I thought.
Because, there's a slightly different configuration with East Shores now, where a lot of the passengers will go straight to the boat to the transport. And I believe the markets will be in the same or similar location. But if the port will let us have an extra 20 stall holders, we'll do our best to fill it. We don't want to knock people back on the basis of that. But it's, we have to manage the parklands in collaboration with the ports.
Very cool. Any further questions, councillors?
I'll move, Mehmet, that the deputation from GAPDL be received.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Seconded, Councillor O'Grady. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thanks, Gus.
Well done, Gus.
Pleasure. I'll turn my speaker off.
We'll get Councillor Muscat back in the room.
So, you're now a technocrat, Gus.
He's been called worse.
Pass the test. Pass the test. Oh, you're a bit rough on him, mate. Yeah, good on you, Gus. All the best, mate. Enjoy Townsville, mate, eh?
All right, well, I'll see you this afternoon at the AGM by the sound of it. Didn't you say you're going nominated for Boyden hookup?
Yeah, no, I've already apologised. I've got to drive to Townsville.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Enjoy Townsville.
To Townsville? Oh, fair call. I was going to say, that's a hey hike. All right. Thank you. All right, councillors, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is G4, Officers' Reports. G4.1, Queensland Fire and Emergency Services Rural Fire Brigade leases. And I'll hand over to the General Manager of Strategic Asset Performance, Mark Francis. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. Morning, councillors. This report is seeking your resolution that the exception to the disposal of valuable non-current asset in the local government regulations applies to the disposal of 2 lots to a government agency, in this case being Rural Fire Brigade at Urimbala and Maroran. We have included information in relation to renewal of, or intended renewal of other leases, which we did not were able to deal with under delegation. I'd like to apologise just for a little bit of confusion and a couple of errors within the report. The aerials and the lot plans that were shown have duplicated, and there is a little bit of confusion in terms of the locality provided for certainly Urimbala being designated Agnes Water and Captain Creek. We've got Peter Watling here, who's our strategic property specialist, and we're keen to answer any questions you may have.
That was going to be my question, so yeah. I'll come back to that. Councillor Churchill.
No, well, I think that's my question too. I'm totally supportive of the officer's recommendation. There's no problems with that, but same again, it may be a consistent question around the table. Once I started to read through the body of the report in trying to understand just where Urimbala, Agnes Water, Captain Creek, and in relation, because from what I understand, and others would be aware, is that they're separate locations, albeit separate QRFS units operating. So I just tried to get an understanding of that, but whilst I asked that to get a clarification, not only for us, but for those that perhaps might be listening on, was that the other part was trying to understand that we're doing a 30-year lease for those two today, outside of policy, or it's
No.
inside policy.
Yeah, there's no limit to...
There's no limit outside of policy, but the other ones are governed by our policy, which is the 10-year.
No, sorry. The 10-year limit is on leases to sport and recreation groups.
Okay, then.
And that's the only limit on policy that we have. So the duration of lease is open to negotiation.
Well, maybe I should rephrase that question then appropriately, is that our policy that relates to the 10-year leases is only for sports and rec leases.
That's correct.
Not any other leases whatsoever.
That's correct.
All right, thank you for that. But if I could just go back, and perhaps others asking the same question, you've made reference to it. Can we get an understanding of the clear separation of Urimbula, Agnes Water and Captain Creek?
Certainly. I'll refer you to the table on the first page of the report, which relates to the brigades. So we have Urimbula, Baroran, Lomead, Coliseum, Rosedale and Foreshores brigades. But I'll now defer to Peter to give you any further detail that you may require.
Thank you, councillors. Working to do this. Thank you, councillors. Yeah, just to clarify, probably my error in trying to give a location to the Urimbula Rural Fire Brigade site. It is actually at Captain Creek, and there is a separate agreement with the Agnes Water or 1770 Rural Fire Brigade, which adjoins the SES facility at 1770.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go, Councillor
Sorry,
O'Grady.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah. So
I'm
just that
I'm
in
still
the table,
confused.
Agnes Water wasn't on there, and that was my question. So is Agnes Water has been left off that for a reason, or because it did have Agnes Water / Captain Creek, which we know Captain Creek is Urimbula?
Yeah. Councillors, just to clarify, the Agnes Water or 1770 Rural Fire Brigade is currently in the midst of a lease or agreement. I think they're in their first term of option, and they have a further option through to 2030. So that's why that wasn't listed. It was purely my error in putting Agnes Water instead of just Captain
Yep.
Creek.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, and then I thought maybe there was two Urimbulas as well, because there was one's got a U and one doesn't. I thought I was just getting a bit confused about where was what. But all right, I'm good with it now.
The key was when you look at the Urimbula location on the map, it's Murphy Road.
Yeah, that's correct. And there was a duplication of
Which is Captain
the
Creek.
map for Foreshores. There was a duplication, so that was the confusing bit.
That's
too.
right. It
Yeah.
says on Intrepid.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
So
Well, I think now I'm much more satisfied now that you're indicating about the Agnes Water one, that is still work in progress, and you're saying that they've got an option to 2030.
That's correct.
So is that a 10-year lease or a 30-year lease?
It was a management agreement for 5 years with two options of 5 years. They're in the first period of option now.
Okay, so
Which
yeah,
goes
I
to
don't want to.
2025 and then a further option.
I don't want to delve into that one because that's obviously from the past. But in going forward, are we trying to align the stars with all of them so that we've got some level of consistency of lease time? Not 5x5s. When we talk 10, we talk 10, not 5x5s. Is that correct?
Yeah. Probably best to explain the current request from Queensland Fire and Emergency Services was for 30-year terms, and it relates to 6 sites. So two of those sites, the freehold sites, the leases have expired, and that's what we're dealing with today.
They're the two we're dealing with, and I totally support that.
And there are 4 sites on Crown Reserve which Council is the trustee for. Those leases are approaching expiry. They're only in the report for information, so you're aware, but Queensland Fire and Emergency Services have asked for 30-year terms on each of those. I guess over time we may try and align those renewal dates.
Thank you for that, Peter. Through you, Mark. My question then, just on that point, even though it's in the body of works, and I'm prepared to move the officer's recommendation, but do those other ones come back to the council boardroom, or are they delegated?
They're delegated.
Okay then.
Just for me, for the officer's recommendation, we'll cover it because the lot and plan is the right address. For the minutes, though, can we correct the locations? Is that okay? Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, just one question. The Coliseum site that's got the water tower on, is there any arrangements required for council access to that, being that's on that site?
Councillor Cameron, I've touched on that in the report, that we may need to have the land surveyed. So one aspect is the Rural Fire Brigade wishes to expand into the former SES building, which adjoins on that site, and we also have the water tower on the site, so we may need to have that surveyed, so we do have
would that survey include an easement for access to the tower?
Potentially, or just define the lease site.
That doesn't exist at the moment, though.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, that's all.
Happy to move, Mayor Matt, unless there's other questions.
I'm good. Thank you. Move Councillor Churchill, seconded Councillor Hanson. No further questions? All in favour? Thank you. It's carried.
Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, councillors. The next item on the agenda is G 4.2, which is Community Investment Program Funding Recommendations. And I'll hand over to the General Manager of Community Development and Events, Kylie Lee. Thank you, Kylie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors, CEO. This particular funding recommendation is for an extraordinary request under the policy, under our community investment policy, for consideration of the 2022 Santos GLNG Mayor's Carols. The reason this is coming to you as an extraordinary request is it doesn't completely meet the criteria under a signature event, with one criteria being overnight visitation. This particular event definitely is a signature event on the Gladstone region's calendar, but mostly attracts residents from our region and really builds community pride. That said, whilst the one criteria doesn't align, the remaining assessment criteria for a signature event does align, and therefore the assessment panel has scored under the remaining criteria. The application scored highly, 2.77 out of 4, and as such, under our assessment criteria, the panel recommended full funding of $36,500 of in-kind support, which is technical resources and equipment from our Gladstone Entertainment Convention Centre. Open any questions from councillors with respect to this event.
Thank you, Kylie. Questions, councillors? Councillor Hanson.
Oh, I just noticed that one of the panel members was assessed at that level, where all the other panel were down a little bit. So was there any reason for that?
Someone might like Christmas, and
they made it. It definitely wasn't me that was assessing.
Sorry, Kylie. I'll come back.
They are subjective, so they are open. Yeah.
Of course, there's no special reason for that. The rest were all sort of similar in there.
No reason.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Muscat, then Councillor O'Grady.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I think it's great. I just wanted to make a comment around the fact that we seem to be measuring the in-kind support a lot better than what we used to be. So I think that's something that sometimes gets overlooked. You know, a lot of what our staff do and what our facilities provide, they're not at no cost. So it's great to see that, you know, when we have events, for example, I don't know, at the Botanic Gardens, our staff go home by 3 or 5 o'clock, not until 10 o'clock. So I think that's a great way of measuring what we
provide for community, not just in financial, but in kind support. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat, and you raise a really good point. Whilst it is an in-kind, because it is within our council resources, there definitely is a cost in supplying those resources. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Thank you, Councillor O'Grady.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation. Where would we be without a mayor's carol? It's just absolutely amazing. So I'm hoping this year that you'll be able to sing us a little song, Mr Mayor.
Not a chance. We want the people to stay to listen. They don't want me to sing.
I've been on the committee since I've been in council for 6.5 years, and it's just been an amazing committee, and having input in that, it's been fantastic. So I'd like to move that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure it's in there somewhere, Kylie, but every year after we do the agreement, there's always something comes back to me about bins and traffic management. So this, I'm happy with the recommendation as well, but am I then going to get in November or December a request to do a traffic management plan, or who's going to pick up the wheelie bins the next day sort of thing? Or is this covered now?
I can confirm that this is just the GECC commitment that 4CC have asked us for, but I will ask our team to check in with 4CC from an event planning perspective to make sure we have that covered.
Lovely. Excellent. All right. Okay, thank you. So move Councillor O'Grady. A seconder, please. Councillor Cameron. Any further questions? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. And thank you, Kylie. The next item on the agenda is G4.3, and it's councillor attendance at conferences 2022-23. And I'll hand over to the CEO, Lisa Dowling. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, 2 interstate conferences coming up, which we've budgeted for attendance at. So seeking Council's resolution today on who they would like to represent at the Parks and Leisure Australia National Conference and also the National Local Roads and Transport Congress.
Thank you. I believe Councillor O'Grady is interested in attending the Parks and Leisure Conference, and I understand Councillor Churchill has indicated desire to join me at the local roads and National Local Roads and Transport Congress, which is in Tasmania in November. We are up for an award for our Phillip Street Community Precinct for the Parks and Leisure conference. So hopefully, Councillor O'Grady, if you're able to attend that, you can claim that award with any staff members that may be attending, and Councillor Churchill can help me as the Vice President of the Australian Local Government Association for any motions that may be on the floor.
Are we up for any awards for improved roads and footpaths at the National Local Roads Congress?
Well, I might be up for an award for Blomfield Street in Miriamvale after what I just heard from Gus.
Yeah, absolutely. There might be a few others.
Am I right, Councillor? Is there any other councillors that desire to attend either of those council conferences?
I just wanted to ask a question in relation to point number 2, in knowing and having attended National Local Roads and Transport Congress in the past, the benefit that can be gained by a senior officer in the area of engineering and roadworks, in understanding what's happening, especially from a lot of the presenters and also the experts that gather nationally. So is that likely? Is that possible? Is that planned?
Councillor Churchill, it hadn't been planned for someone to attend. Our training and development budget is very tight this year for our officers, but it would appear appropriate for an officer to attend to support councillors at this one, so we can review that situation and provide advice to you, but we can provide an officer to attend if that's council's desire.
Well, I suppose in light of my request at this particular stage, perhaps once we hear the agenda, but I do know from others in the past the benefit that can be gained by hearing about innovative examples that are happening in the road construction. And it's not only just about roads, it's about transport, it's about bridges, it's about rail lines, it's a full transport aspect. And when we've been talking more recently about hydrogen and be it hydrogen cars and flying cars and taxis, so I just feel that it might be and signage, from our Central Queensland regional roads aspect as well.
Thank you. Generally we've always had an engineer attend as well, so it would be handy to have someone there from an officer point of view. Councillor Hanson.
That used to always be the case. The GM from engineering used to go every year. and I attended a couple of times at that stage with him, and I see it as a very good opportunity. I agree with you, Councillor Churchill.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. That's lovely to hear that you agree with me. So perhaps in point number 2, if it was possible to perhaps, or what would be the process in good governance to make a determination if a senior engineer could attend?
Well, Lisa can do that at officer level. It doesn't need a council resolution. Council resolution is only for councillors to attend. Councillor Muscat.
I was happy to move that Councillor O'Grady goes to one of them and Councillor Churchill goes to the roads one, if that was okay with you. Yes, thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? So the recommendation is that we nominate Councillor O'Grady to attend the leisure and Councillor Churchill to join me at the National Local Roads and Transport Congress. I'll be there, obviously, as the Vice President of the Australian Local Government Association. I think you can put it on the screen if you like. But
councillors like that on the screen, just so everyone clear on the councillors who are nominated?
Councillor O'Grady in the first line, and then Councillor Churchill.
Tanya's.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in
Yes, please.
about the PLA? I attended the PLA conference in 2019, and that's from attending that conference and speaking to people at that conference. I came back with a lot of information, but I actually spoke to them about having the Queensland PLA conference in Gladstone, and which we have, and I believe we may have another one coming up. So, and it's just that networks as well, you know, going to this conference, and I don't know what our economic benefit was out of that conference, but I know a lot of motels were full and business places, so that was great.
Councillor O'Grady, you raise a very valid point, and I suppose to determine whether there's something that might be consistent with the National Local Roads and Transport Congress, because I know ones that I've attended in the past, they're not just held in the major cities, the capitals of Australia. They like to go out into the regional areas, so you know, it might be something that perhaps we could also consider in the likelihood for bidding for a future one here in Gladstone region, central Queensland.
Good
Would
idea.
you like to come down, me to come down and advocate for you?
Sorry.
Maybe that can be your role, Councillor Churchill, while we're there. I kind of have a little conflict sitting on the board that makes the decision on where the conference is at. But if you would be there and advocating for the Gladstone region to host the next Local Roads and Transport Congress, I'm sure that it would go down well. The previous one was in Wagga Wagga, and I think before that we were in Mount Gambier, and it's been in Bendigo, so it's certainly our turn in Queensland. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Hanson.
I've had my hand up for a little while, Councillor. Sorry,
You
Mr.
certainly
Mayor.
have, but people were speaking. So
and I thought we'd get more interest this week because it's very rare that we have the full power of this side of the table against the other side.
Well,
we outnumber the other side.
You can put your hand up as long as you like, but you've got to wait till people finish speaking.
I know it's difficult sometimes for you to look to the right, but I'd like to second that motion, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Move, Councillor Muscat. Second, Councillor Hanson. Any further questions or comments? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. It's carried. Next item on the agenda. Oh, hang on. What are we doing? Now we've got a bit of time. We're going well. Is G4.4, 2022-23, General, Sole and Specialised Suppliers Additional, and I hand over to the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes. Thank you, Mark. Home.
For the addition of some 7 new suppliers for specialised and sole supplier status with Council. So we did adopt on the 7th of June a comprehensive list, but following, I guess, additional review from our teams and consultation with the business, we have identified these essentially additional 7 suppliers. So seeking that endorsement from Council to enter into those arrangements for the 22-23 financial year.
Councillor O'Grady.
Happy to move, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, can I just go to a question from Councillor Muscat first?
The other way. Just quickly, on the publication that circulates throughout the Gladstone region, being the only one, I thought we had a new the Gladstone Today publication that also does that, but it might be a different situation, I'm not sure.
Yep.
I'll let Christy answer. She's got done the research as well.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So on the 7th of June, we actually adopted Central Queensland Media, who publishes CQ Today and Gladstone Today in the supplies for this financial year.
That's great, it's just that it does say the only publisher of a publication. So maybe you should
Yep,
say
thank you.
only, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I raised the same question. Obviously, loving to support Gladstone News, great local newspaper, but we need to acknowledge that Gladstone Today is also circulating in the local region as well. So, do we need to amend that in the minutes as well? Can we do that too, please?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Councillor O'Grady, you're moving that? Yeah, sure. Moved. Councillor O'Grady seconded. Councillor Cameron. Is there any further questions, councillors? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Christy. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is G4.5, recommendation to appoint external member and nominate a committee chair to the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, ARIC, post 31st of December 2022. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In line with the your charter for your Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, it essentially has come time for us to review not only our external membership of that committee, but also essentially the chair of that committee. So as essentially the term, or the maximum term, has been reached for our current chair, Kerry Phillips. So we have gone through a recruitment process for that, for which Councillor Muscat, as being an ARIC member, was on that panel, along with myself and the current financial expert, Kerry Phillips, was on that there, and they have made a recommendation to you, which is included as part of a confidential attachment. Also for your consideration is the appointment of a new chair for that committee, and both current external members have expressed an interest in applying for that position, and both would essentially be very suitable candidates to take up that role. But happy to leave it in Council's consideration to essentially make those decisions.
Thank you, councillors. Councillor Muscat, you're on that panel. Would you like to comment?
Yes, I was on the panel, and it was great to have Kerry help us through the process, as well as the former chair, and also the person that we're looking at replacing skills. So I support the recommendation. Now it is, I guess, a council decision. So I have been part of writing this recommendation, so it's up to you to accept it. But we're very confident that the person in the recommendation is going to do a great job. So.
Okay.
So Peter Cheville was the recommended candidate from the group.
Okay. So can we put that up on the screen too, please? Yep. Can we put the names in there on the screen so people online can see as well? Okay, and the next point too, as the chairman or chairperson rather.
There's no recommendation.
There's a recommendation. So essentially, the two profiles of those members have been included for your consideration, in terms of from both an outgoing chair perspective and also from an officer's perspective. There's been essentially not much to split between those two candidates. Certainly you have Mr Coates, who's an experienced internal audit representative and on the board of Internal Audit Australia, Institute of Internal Audit Australia, and you've also got Sandra Collins, who's a local member who's got a wealth of experience in a project and contract management space, and has been certainly a welcome voice at the table. But both could adequately do the job. But happy to leave that to the group. But certainly there's a mixture of national and international experience versus that, I guess, another skill set, which is essentially that local but more probably project and contract management experience. but happy to leave that to the group.
Okay, Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I'd like to ask a question at this particular stage. I've read through both candidate CVs. There's no recommendation from the panel of three who were there for their role and responsibility was in relation to the interviewing for the replacement position.
Correct.
And then making reference for what might happen for the future. But there's no recommendation from that panel in relation to the chair's position. So my question, I suppose, is twofold. First and foremost is both candidates are both worthy of being chairs for the position. That's the first thing. The second thing is what's the process for us in relation to a selection of either one of those candidates, because we could end up in a fairly robust debate going either way unless there's a recommendation from the panel. Or is this because the recommendation from the panel was dealt confidentially, why wouldn't this matter be still dealt with confidentially?
The panel was there to engage, and the new your new member wasn't there to recommend a new chair. I guess what we did seek was essentially from a officer level is seek basically whether our current members were interested in stepping up to being chair. Both have indicated an interest, but really it isn't our decision to make in that space. But certainly, as I said, I've probably pointed out the two differences there. It depends on what skill set we are really after that. So both can adequately do the job.
And rightfully, as you identify, they're both staying on the committee anyway, as such. So I'm asking the question at this stage: what is the process for us in relation to the confidentiality aspect of nominating and/or debating and determining who's going to be the most suitable? Can we go into confidential? Is it a matter we can go into confidential to deal with, or we're going to have to deal with the deliberation on either one of those two worthy candidates?
I don't see any reason to go into confidential. The difference between the first appointment and the second one is that the applicants were not known. But whereas in this case, the two people being considered are known people, so we're not protecting personal private information. You also have two councillors who are members of ARIC who may have a recommendation, and also other councillors have observed or participated in those meetings as well. So you have first-hand experience of their performance, I suppose. So I think it's appropriate that council discusses and resolves that in public.
Fair enough, I'll accept that, but I'd also be prepared to listen to my colleagues who are on that committee.
So I'd like to hear from Councillor Muscat and Councillor O'Grady. Both obviously can chair, and Sandra is local, but Stephen has massive amounts of experience in chairing these sorts of meetings. If we were to appoint Stephen first, does it exclude Sandra from taking on the chair role at a later date, or is there some kind of term that she could not hang on?
You could roll it. You could essentially put a rolling. It's not.
Oh no, I don't mean
the neatest, but you could absolutely.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, Mark. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
I meant
there's nothing in your charter that precludes that.
No, what I was meaning is there a time limit on if Stephen was to be appointed, and there's a time limit on how long he can be chair? Is there a time limit on how long Sandra could be on the committee? So I don't know. Yeah,
they each have limits on how long. So I would suggest that given their time remaining, whoever you appoint as chair today would remain as chair for their duration.
Okay, thank that. That answers for me. Yes. No, you go.
I was just because it is. I think both will be more than capable of doing of chairing this committee. Is there a way that this could go back to the group and then the group decide as who they would like to appoint as their chair?
I suggest that might be difficult given that it's those two members plus the two councillors here, given you've got a new member coming in who might be challenging.
Yeah. You basically, it needs to be decided here at the boardroom. Councillor O'Grady, can you offer some advice, please?
I have been on the ARIC committee for quite a considerable amount of time, and Stephen would be the longest serving out of that time, and I think, where credit's due, that he has done a brilliant job. Sandra has too, but with Stephen being the longest serving, then I would recommend him to be the chair.
Councillor Hanson, you've attended ARIC meetings?
Yeah, I attended most ARIC meetings, and both are very, very capable. Sandra, in her own asset management, more than anything, absolutely required for the ARIC committee. But Stephen is so adept at risk management and whatever, and is well versed at chairing. And I guess longevity would do it for me. I guess they'd probably both run as a par for me. So longevity is one reason why I would probably favour Stephen. But Sandra is a very good member and keeps the meeting very, very honest regarding asset management and those sorts of. And that's what we absolutely need.
And that will be the reason why I will recommend Sandra, in a way. So this is kind of, it is really difficult for us to do this because
it is, and
also knowing how Sandra actually, it's a local resident, and she has a combination of skills that are very interesting in that, yeah, it's not just about the high level, but also a lot of not grassroots necessarily, but practical and hands-on experience.
This is where the Queensland government's got it wrong. You should be able to discuss this in confidential.
Absolutely.
It's not good enough that you have a conversation about two high-standing members of our community. And
do we know whether Stephen or Sandra would have indicated that they would like to take the chair?
They both nominated. I raised that right at the beginning, is that the one thing we don't want to be doing here today is debating individuals in relation to their CV. Because we've all got their CVs, we've got that in confidential. That's why I asked there before. I cannot understand why we can't go into confidential to resolve it.
No, we can't go into confidential.
Yeah,
Sorry, Councillor Muscat, help me out.
No, I was just thinking, as the mayor, we'll like to hear what your recommendation is. And
Yeah, as I said before, I'm kind of torn, as obviously the two ARIC members are. I think Stephen has the most experience as a chair, and I think considering we're appointing a chair, that's probably the way I would recommend. But I really think Sandra has asset management that we really are looking for. But she will still be on the committee, and you're looking for a chairman, and I think that's probably the way we should go today. I think, and to take it away from the ARIC board members, maybe I'll move that way. That we appoint Stephen Coates as the chair of the ARIC committee, and I'll accept point one up there as well.
Just a point of order is you've got a motion already at this particular stage because you accepted the motion from Councillor O'Grady. So my point of order at this stage, if you're supporting that one, then you'd be seconding it. The danger that I have now from a good governance perspective is that if I wanted to vote for the other candidate appropriately, I'd be voting against a recommendation that I would support. That's the conflict we put ourselves in as a result of not being able to deal with this in confidential.
Can I just clarify? I believe Councillor Muscat has already moved part one of the motion. Do we need to separate
let's
the
do
2
that.
points? Just from a governance perspective, Tanya, is that acceptable?
Yeah, Councillor Muscat. So Councillor Muscat moved the first item, seconded by Councillor Hanson. Are we right up the end of the table? We're good? Put that motion all in favour? Thank you. Now we'll go to the second part of the motion.
Yeah, look, please accept my apologies, Councillor O'Grady, because I actually thought you'd actually said that you would be wanting to support Stephen Coates for that position. So I thought that was moving in that direction.
No.
Okay.
But I will move now that we appoint Stephen as the chair of our ARIC committee, and I'm looking for a seconder, please. I might look for someone outside the board. Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Any further discussion or debate?
I just want to thank you for doing that. Thanks.
No worries. I put the motion all in favour. Motion's carried. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Mark. All right. Well, still on ARIC, 4.6 is our Audit Risk and Improvement Committee meeting minutes for the 15th of June 2022. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this item is just for your to receive the minutes from that meeting on the 15th of June for the ARIC. The paper identifies a number of the items that were raised, as well as attaching the full minutes from those meetings. Happy to take any questions that you have with respect to those.
Councillor Hanson.
I just have a few, just regarding the minutes, page 13. Maybe you could take these on notice, but procurement non-compliance, the reporting process is due for completion on the 22nd of July. What have been the results of this? Have we got a result in that area?
Yep, so essentially from a non-compliance perspective, those processes we identify through our procurement team. If there's any even minor administrative non-compliances, they are raised in a register, and we've got essentially a series of escalations that then occur with respect to each of those, that then essentially, depending on the severity, go to either the general manager or straight to our ethics, integrity and audit team for follow-up.
So that's been
resolved. Yeah.
That's that date, the 22nd of July, has been resolved.
Yes.
You know, I just think that we're in a big risk situation here if we continue to, you know, we've been talking about this for a long time, even my time on ARIC, way back, about non-compliance. So if we can get this cleaned up, would be a very good dismissive risks that we have that could escalate into other things.
So, certainly, I think the absolute number that have come with respect to non-compliances have reduced dramatically, particularly over the last 12 months, which has been pleasing to see. But it's making sure that we're consistent with the actions that we do follow up on those.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a follow-up on that and result in the next ARIC meeting.
Yep.
The other one is the incident reporting process. Have we seen significant improvement, and have we reviewed that process?
I'll have to take that one on notice. Is that with respect to our safety incidents? Certainly, our incidents are reported through Beacon, and then to me, our incidents are raised appropriately. I guess what probably we do need to continue to refine is make sure we've got the follow-up actions and investigation processes done in a timely manner. So what we've done now is certainly through our Beacon software has got full visibility of all those incidents as they're raised. And it's just making sure that we're actioning those at the appropriate officers at the appropriate time.
And the only other one I had, Mark, thank you for that, is page 14 to 32, which is the excessive leave. It's raising its head again. Is it being reduced? Is it we have an active?
Sorry, if I may just refer to the previous one before I go on to that one, but just to reassure you that in the performance agreements with the general managers that are all bar one completed, which was due to my being away ill, everyone has KPIs in terms of safety investigations and corrective actions. So I'll be monitoring that very closely, and the executive team's all very committed to improving our performance there.
Thank you.
In terms of excess leave, something we're lacking in the reporting data at the moment is the percentage of those officers that have an approved leave plan in place. So at the moment, it's difficult to get a gauge on how many are actively being managed and how many require attention. So that's a request we made of TINUS at the last executive meeting to provide us with that data so we have increased visibility. So happy to share that through the ARIC reporting as well once we have that visibility.
Okay, as long as we're working on it, it's the main thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Churchill?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that. Page 14, appropriately, but making reference, I think, to 8.5, and in the absence of the General Manager for People, Culture and Safety, Director... Oh, right. Oh, okay, then. Well, direct the question through you, Madam CEO, to...
TINUS, yeah.
Just in... Beg your pardon?
Sorry, was that page 14 of the minutes?
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, good?
Yep.
No, it was in relation to the completion of performance and development agreements and the individual development plans. I can understand that, noting that the turnover of staff has impacted the completion of the PDAs and IDPs, and I can understand that when you're considering managing the volume of work, but in light of what's occurring with turnover of staff, my question and it's not identified in here. Are we undertaking separation interviews for those that are leaving the organisation? There's no mention of it at all. And if we are, and they are being completed, what are we doing with the information and or feedback that comes back in relation to improving culture and I suppose comes back to the IDPs for individual development for others if you get feedback on that from a separation?
Tina, are you available online to respond to that question?
I can respond. Thank you, Lisa, and to the council. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
We are undertaking exit interviews, but the exit interviews also a voluntary process. But we at least do a questionnaire to get the information in. At the moment, when we analyse the data, there's not I think the answers that we're getting is not indicative of anything that we need necessarily have to fix internally. It's mostly as a result of the current market volatility. Most of the reasons are for family reasons and taking up other opportunities. A lot of those are outside of Gladstone, moving back into the metro areas in Brisbane and taking up opportunities, especially in transitioning with children going to universities and for private schools and so forth. The only way that we'll get better information is if we outsource exit interviews to a third party and start to get more anonymous feedback on reasons why our staff are leaving. But other than that, when just analysing the data that we've got, there's no specific trend that we need to manage in the short and medium term that we can pick up through the trends. We are getting in the most that we can at the moment. At times, I'm doing some exit interviews myself just to find out, are employees leaving the organisation? Are they leaving their leaders? And what are the opportunities, especially if it comes to senior leadership? At some point, I've interviewed 3 engineers just to make sure that we understand why they're leaving, and they're all left for other council jobs in Redlands and Gold Coast and so forth. So long answer, we do exit interviews. We don't have a significant trend other than the work that we're currently doing on culture. Part of our challenge is sector-wise in terms of how we pay. If employees leave the sector for better pay, that makes it very difficult for us to compete within sector. We are paying what we should be paying.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tina. Thanks, CEO.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions? No worries. I'll move Councillor Churchill, second Councillor Hanson. Put the motion, all in favour. That's carried. Thank you, Mark. The next item on the agenda is councillor reports, and I have no doubt Councillor O'Grady would love to talk about the Inland Rail Trail that's opening this weekend, and Councillor Cameron as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. As everybody probably is aware, that when we did the feasibility study for the Boyne-Burnett Inland Rail Trail, there was 3 sections that was identified. And we have opened the Dawes Range Tunnel section, which was it'll be this Sunday, 1 year. So within 1 year, we'll be opening the Burnett River Bridges section, which is between Mundubbera and Mount Debatable near Gayndah. So that happens this weekend. It's very exciting. We're expecting well over 500 people to attend. It's just over 30 kilometres, the trail, and one way to Mundubbera to Mount Debatable, or if you go Mount Debatable to Reeds Creek is 7.5 kilometres. So there was a bridge wiped out in 2013, and so you can't get right into Gayndah, but part of the group's ambitions are to actually put a suspension bridge or board the bridge so they can start from Gayndah one day when funding becomes available. So everybody's invited to come along to the opening of the Boyne-Burnett Inland Rail Trail, the Burnett River Bridges sections. Absolutely amazing bridges down there. So the official opening is at 11 o'clock, but you can turn up. There's a fun run at 8:30. And yeah, so Little Athletics Gayndah are doing some of the food, and the Rotary from Mundubbera are doing the barbecue, so involving all the non-profit groups in the community. So the towns are very, very excited. So, and I believe most of the accommodation in Mundubbera and Gayndah actually are booked out, so which is fantastic. So So thank you. Hopefully we'll see you on Saturday.
I'd love to attend, but I can't, unfortunately. Sorry. I would really like to be there for that. Anyway, no worries. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I've just got a statement here on behalf of the Capricorn Pest Management Group, which I'd just like to read to you. The Capricorn Pest Management Group, in conjunction with the Australian Government's Reef Trust and the Fitzroy Basin Association, are holding 3 feral pig landholder engagement workshops to address the issues and problems concerning the feral pig populations in central Queensland. The Australian Government have funding available to assist in the control of the feral pig population and the damage they can cause and the diseases that they can spread. However, the Australian Government is of the opinion that central Queensland does not have a serious feral pig population problem. Consequently, there is no funding available for central Queensland. There is a serious problem with feral pigs in our region, and the diseases such as tuberculosis and leptospirilliosis have been found in feral pigs in our region. Both these diseases can be fatal to animals and humans. The aim of these workshops is to bring together landholders, pest management contractors, feral pig hunters and shooters, and anybody who has an interest in the control and management of feral pigs in our region, to be a contributor of information on the sighting and estimate of numbers of feral pigs and the area of sighting. This recording will be achieved by using a free download app called Feral Scan, which can be sent to a central database to be collated with a view to convince the Australian Government that the central Queensland does have a feral pig population and needs to be considered for any available funding to control the feral pig population. There are 3 workshops starting on the 10th of October at the Calpa Hall, 16 Calpa Hall, Black Mountain Road, that is between Westwood and Gracemere in the Rockhampton area, starting at 8:30am and going through to 2, approximately. October 11, Banana Shire Council, 62 Valentine Plains Road, that's the council chambers there, same times, 8:30 to 2 approximately, and on October 12, Ubobo Hall, 5 Railway Terrace, Boyne Valley, same times again. The presenters will be Peter West, he's a Feral Scan coordinator. He is the Invasive Species Officer for the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries, and Tyrone Davis, who manufactures and has designed pig traps called tracker traps. Attendees will be given the tools to record feral pig activity on their properties and learn to manage and reduce the impacts of these pests. Each attendee will go into a draw to win a free tracker trap. It's a 3-panel trap, she's a beauty, and 3 bags of Tracker's Trap grain mix. I'm told it's really good stuff. The winner of each will be at each. These must be in attendance to be eligible and have the Feral Scan app downloaded on their phone or device. It's a pity we couldn't have this done a little bit earlier. Oh, this would have been a magnificent Father's Day gift. Morning tea and lunch will be provided, and further workshops will be allocated after the success and the interest of the first 3 workshops are assessed. We do have a flyer that we're going to put out there. This is only a draft. It's yet to be passed by the committee for distribution. Once it is, I'd like to send that to our councillor group, and if you could send that through your social media outlets, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Any further councillor reports? Do I need them over for them to be received? No? Don't need that? Okay, thank you, councillors. The next item and the last item on the agenda is our urgent business item, which I flagged earlier in our apologies. We have an urgent business item 6.1, which is a leave of absence from Councillor Chris Trevor. It says to hand over the CEO, but Lisa and I met with Councillor Trevor just recently, and for those watching online, I'm obviously the councillors in the boardroom will be well aware, but for those watching online may not be. Councillor Trevor is currently back home in Gladstone after recovering from a near-fatal heart attack, which occurred on Monday the 9th of August 2022. Chris will be undergoing further rehabilitation and specialist advice, and on his behalf he has requested me to thank everyone for their concern and well wishes. He will advise further of his position after further medical advice is received, but is hopeful of returning to council on the first Tuesday of November, which is Melbourne Cup Day, he reminded me of. So I would like to move a different motion to the officer's recommendation that Council grant Councillor Chris Trevor a leave of absence for the period of the 1st of September 2022 to the 31st of October 2022. Can I get a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Is there any discussion or debate? No, I put the motion. All in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors, and we wish you a speedy recovery, Chris. With that, the time being now 10:47 a.m, there are no further agenda items. I declare the meeting closed. And thank you.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.